The night was calm over Pride Rock, but inside Simba's heart, everything was in chaos. Years ago, before anyone even heard the name Kovu, there was one moment, just one, that changed everything. A moment of weakness, a moment of love, a moment of regret, we don't know. But what we do know is that when Simba looked at Kovu, he gave him that look. Not a look of doubt or even fear. No, it was the look of someone staring at a reflection of himself. Same eyes, same walk, same fire that ignites when someone threatens what he loves. In secret, Simba used to watch him from afar. He followed every little detail, as if his conscience was screaming, "That's your son, Simba, so why are you silent?" Let's rewind a little. Nala had noticed something. She knew there was something off in Simba's behavior. He avoided getting too close to Kovu, spoke to him cautiously, and in her usual bluntness, she confronted him once in the cave. Nala, "Simba, are you afraid of Kovu or afraid for him?" Simba turned away and stayed silent, but the truth was burning inside him. On one of his exile journeys, after the events of the first movie, and before returning to Pride Lands, Simba met another lion, or rather, a lioness. Her name was Zarina. She didn't appear in the films, but she was there in the background, one of the outcast lions who followed neither Scar nor Mufasa. Zarina was different, strong, wise, and with something rare. She understood Simba without him needing to speak, and when he returned to the Pride Lands, he left her behind. Not knowing she was pregnant, Kovu was born in the Outlands, but he was never Scar's son or part of his bloodline. Zarina died early, leaving the cub in Zira's care, and Zira, with her devilish cunning, she figured it out early and used it. She told herself, if Kovu turns out to be the king's son, then he's the key to power. She raised him to hate Simba, to twist the bond into a curse, and she planted the lie deep inside him. Your real father is Scar, and Simba killed him. And he believed it, but his heart was saying something else. It always asked, why did I feel like I knew him the first time I saw him? Why does he push me away and pull me closer at the same time? Why is it that whenever I fall, his eyes are always searching for me? One night, the wind howled around Pride Rock. Kovu was sleeping in the cave, and Nala was walking past him. She heard something, a soft voice. Was he dreaming? Kovu, Dad, why won't you tell me the truth? Nala froze, her heart dropped. She looked back at him, and for the first time, she began to doubt. The next day, she confronted Simba again. Nala, is there something between you and Kovu? Something more than leadership? More than fear? Simba looked at her, broken, and he said just one word. Simba, I made a mistake. Nala stepped closer. Nala, what kind of mistake? Simba, I left a part of me behind, and it's gone. Nala, Kovu? Simba didn't answer, but his eyes said everything. That moment was the point of no return. From that moment on, Nala became part of the secret, but not a part of the silence. The next day, Kovu came to Simba in the cave. He stood in front of him and said innocently, Kovu, I used to think you hated me, but why is it that when I'm near you, I feel safe? Simba looked at him, and his expression changed. But he said, Simba, because you're brave, and I've always respected the brave. But inside, he wanted to scream, because you're mine, my blood. And from that moment on, every action Simba took had two meanings. To the outside world, it looked like he was rejecting Kovu or afraid of him. But inside, he was trying to protect him from the war, from Zira, and from the truth. But the truth can never stay hidden. And from the war, from Zira, and from the truth. But the truth can never stay hidden. Nala began to act behind his back. She got closer to Kovu, asked him questions, shared stories, tried to reach what was buried inside him. But one particular night, Kovu overheard something he was never meant to hear. He heard Nala telling Simba, he needs to know Simba before Zira kills him with the lie she planted in him. Kovu heard it, he froze. His blood began to boil. He walked in and said, Kovu, who's my real father? Simba couldn't answer. Kovu stepped closer. Kovu, I'm your son, aren't I? Simba left the cave and walked away. And right then, the greatest storm in the Pride Lands began. Not a storm of wind, a storm of blood. Kovu walked out of the cave. But this time wasn't like any time before. The lion, who had always been lost, now knew exactly who he was. But instead of peace, he transformed. A voice inside him was screaming, "Son of the king or son of betrayal? Whose son am I?" He marched through the night, heavy steps, fire blazing in his eyes. Simba stood alone at the edge of Pride Rock, staring down at the kingdom, wind crashing against his face. Nala came up behind him and said, "Nala, Kovu needs to hear it from you, not from me. Simba, I need him to hear it while he's still my son, not when he's already become my enemy. You turned him into your enemy when you hid the truth. Simba, protecting him, protecting you, and protecting Kiara, but it was too late." Meanwhile, Zira stood in the outlands, surrounded by silence in the dead of night, but inside her head, everything was on fire. Her daughter, Vaitani, approached and said, "Vaitani, Kovu's gone, and he's not coming back." Zira raised her head and replied, "Zira, Kovu was never one of them, or one of us." Vaitani, "But you raised him." Zira shot her a furious look. "Zira, I raised a weapon to destroy Pride Rock. And when a weapon turns on its master, it must be broken." Cut to Kovu, standing alone in a wide open field, the night slowly giving way to dawn. Suddenly, he heard a voice. Not an echo, not the wind. A voice from within. Mufasa, the voice he had heard all his life through stories Nala told, through the whispers of animals. But for the first time, he heard it clearly. Mufasa's voice. A true king is the one who admits his mistakes, even if it costs him everything. Kovu turned around, searching, but no one was there. Still his heart pounded. Kovu returned to Pride Rock, but not as a guest. He came to face the truth. He entered the court, surrounded by lions on all sides. Simba saw him and let him walk in. Kovu stood before him and said, "Kovu, I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to ask for answers. Simba, everything inside you already knows the truth. I'm just the one who hid it." Kovu, "Why, Simba?" "I was afraid of you, of myself, of Zira, of the throne." Kovu, "But the truth doesn't spare those who fear it. It punishes them." At that moment, Kiara walked into the courtyard. She heard the last sentence and froze. Kovu saw her, and for the first time, he couldn't look her in the eyes. He said, "Kovu, I didn't just lie to you. I didn't even know who I was." Kiara, stepping closer, "I care about who you've become." Silence. All the lions stood still. The whole family circled around them. But at the center of that circle was a crack. Suddenly, two lions appeared no one expected, Timon and Pumbaa, usually all jokes and laughter, but this time they were silent, carrying a message. "Pumbaa, we raised Simba, watched him fall and rise. But this is the first time we've seen him run away. Timon, the only truth that matters to us, that our son isn't a traitor. And his son, he has to choose who he wants to be." Simba stepped into the circle and stood before Kovu. He said, "Simba, I made a mistake. But now you have two paths before you. Be the son of the king who hid the truth, or become the king who never hides it." Kovu looked around, at Nala, at Pumbaa, at Kiara. But before he could answer, a loud roar tore through the sky. The lions of the outlands were attacking. Zira was with them. The battle had begun. Kiara ran toward Kovu. "Kiara, get back! This fight isn't yours right now." Kovu, "No, this is the only fight I was born to face." The battle was fierce. Vatani clashed with Simba. Zira saw Kovu fighting alongside the Pride Lands, and she lost control. Simba was wounded. Kovu saw him fall, the moment he had imagined all his life. But when he saw his father on the ground, blood spilling from his side, the world went silent. Kovu lifted Simba and screamed, "Kovu! The king must stay standing!" Zira saw them and smiled bitterly. "Zira, you turned against me for him? Then get ready." She charged at him, and Kovu didn't move. But before she could reach him, Nala appeared, she leapt in front of him, and fell. Zira struck her. Everything stopped. Simba stood up, barely. Kiara screamed. Kovu held Nala in his arms. She looked up at him and said, "Nala, I wanted to tell you long ago, but I wanted your father to tell you himself." Kovu, "You knew?" Nala, "I knew, and I love you, just like I love Kiara." Nala closed her eyes. Simba fell to his knees, and Kovu turned toward him. Kovu, "I heard really am your son, and more than that, you're my only hope." Rain poured down over Pride Rock, and the silence was terrifying. Some lions were mourning. There was blood on the ground, and a broken heart. Nala was gone. The queen who had always stood strong like stone fell in front of Zira to protect Kovu. and died. Simba sat beside her, saying nothing. His paw rested on her face, eyes frozen in place. Kiara stood at a distance, crying, but her eyes stayed locked on Kovu. Kovu stood still, no breath, no emotion, his face empty, as if the shock had drained everything from him. Zira slipped away into the shadows, but she didn't run. She was coming back, and with a fire that couldn't be put out. Hours later, the Lion Council gathered. Vitani, Kiara, Simba, Kovu, everyone was seated. One of the elder lions spoke. Elder Lion, Zira must answer for what she's done. But the bigger question is, where does Kovu stand now? Silence. Another voice. Second Lion. Huh, he's the king's son, but he's also a threat. Can we trust him? Simba. I was the one who made the mistake. Kovu didn't choose to be born in secret, but he chose to fight in the light. Kovu lifted his head and looked around the room. Then he said, with a voice calm but sharp, Kovu, I'm not asking for trust or a throne. I'm asking for justice. Vitani, what do you mean? Kovu, I mean Zira should be judged, in front of everyone. No secret execution, no silent escape. Simba nodded slowly. This isn't a war of claws, it's a war of conscience. They began preparing Zira's trial, but the night before, Kiara met Kovu alone, on the small hill overlooking the river. Kiara, I don't know how to deal with you. My brother, my love, a former enemy. Kovu, you're the only one who saw me when I was lost, but I never meant to deceive you. Kiara, gazing into his eyes, maybe not on purpose, but I was still deceived. And so were you. Kovu stayed silent. Kiara, there's something inside me that says, you were never a liar, but I can't forget that I loved someone I didn't fully know. Kovu stepped closer. I know the wound is deep, but I want to build something from its ashes. The day arrived. Zira's trial. Everyone gathered. Zira stood in the center, but she stood tall, like a lioness who wouldn't flinch. Simba, do you have anything to say? Zira smirked, venom in her smile. I raised your son more than you ever did. Is he really yours? Or mine? If he had died, it would have been by my sword. And if he survived, then it's because my blood runs in his veins. Kovu answered, your blood! You raised hatred, but I chose to be different, Zira snapped. You chose to be weak. I turned an orphan into a king. The lions fell silent. Then Kiara cried out, Kiara, enough! All eyes turned to her. Kiara, enough death, enough hate. The ones we lost aren't coming back, but the ones who remain can still change. Simba stepped forward. Simba, Zira, exile, not death. You'll be banished from the Pride Lands forever. Zira screamed, you're as weak as your son. Kovu walked up to her and said, no, we're stronger than hate, and that's something you'll never understand. Zira was dragged away by the guards, and for the first time, she looked defeated, but more importantly, peace returned. That night, Simba stood with Kovu. Simba, I always saw myself in you, but I didn't want you to carry the same burden. Kovu, I walked half the path alone, but the rest, I need you with me. Simba placed a paw on his shoulder. Simba, the king of pride doesn't need a crown. He just needs to learn from pain. The next day, the lions gathered again. Simba declared, Simba, from this day on, Kovu is not just my heir. He is Kiara's brother, her partner in ruling in duty and in peace. Kiara stepped forward, placed her paw gently on Kovu's head. Kiara, you're not just the one I love. You're family now. And far, far above, from the clouds, a voice echoed, Mufasa, pride doesn't come from blood. It comes from what you choose to be. Kovu looked up at the sky and softly said, Kovu, I'm your son, Simba. But now I've become my own.